All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is Monday, January 19th, 2026, Missile Monday. And I have this article from Newsweek. And it says South Korea deploys monster missile amid North Korea nuclear threat. So I'm just going to go into this article and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And it says South Korea has reportedly deployed a ballistic missile dubbed the Monster for its size as part of its military strategy amid North Korea's nuclear weapons deployment. Says why it matters. South Korea, a key United States treaty ally that hosts 28,500 American troops on the Korean Peninsula, has developed a military strategy known as the Three-Axis System, designed to defend against North Korea's nuclear and missile attacks and conduct preemptive and retaliatory strikes against its northern neighbors, facilities, and leaders. Despite international pressure and sanctions, North Korea continues to refine its capabilities through testing and fielding new weapons. Its leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to strengthen the nuclear shield and sword to counter the U.S.-South Korean alliance, which is protected by American nuclear weapons under extended deterrence. Says what to know. Citing military sources, South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported on Sunday that the deployment of the Hyunmo-5 missile began late last year and is expected to be completed during President Lee Jae-myung's administration, which ends in 2030. The missile is 65 feet long and carries an 8-ton conventional warhead designed to destroy underground bunkers that could house North Korea's missiles and leadership. Seoul has said the weapon is capable of ultra-precision, ultra-high power strikes. So again, like that's, so it doesn't matter, for you people that have bunkers. Now, if you have it outside of the United States in a country that's not going to get hit, then okay, you'll be safe. Talking to the elites, but for anyone that does have a bunker primarily in the United States, you're still not going to make it. You're not going to survive. But continuing on, it says, including the Hyunmo-5 missile and its upgraded variants, South Korea has planned to deploy up to hundreds of advanced missiles. The report said as the country is prohibited from owning nuclear weapons under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. In an interview with Yonhap News Agency last October, South Korean Defense Chief An Gyu-bak said that possessing a considerable number of monster missiles could create what he described as a balance of terror against North Korea's threat. Regarding the monster missiles capabilities, Joseph Dempsey, a military analyst at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, said a conventional missile equipped with such a large warhead is unprecedented, as it typically weighs less than 1 ton. The Hyunmo-5's 8-ton warhead probably does not consist solely of high explosives and may include a dense metal penetrator, precursor, or tandem charges to enhance penetration and target damage. Dempsey wrote in an October 2024 article, says what people are saying. South Korean Defense Minister An Gyubak said in an October 2025 interview, mass production of the Humo-5 ballistic missile has begun, and measures are being sought to significantly increase output. Joseph Dempsey, a military analysis, well, I just read what he said, but says Joseph Dempsey, a military analysis at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, commented in October 2024, while there is no evidence that Seoul seeks to develop or deploy longer-range ballistic missiles, the continued and less constrained evolution of its ballistic missile program highlights a growing inherent capacity to address potential wider regional threats. Says what happens next. Says it remains to be seen whether South Korea will deploy more capable missiles as North Korea refuses to give up its nuclear weapons. The arms race on the Korean Peninsula may prompt nearby countries, including Japan and China, to bolster their military power, which they will eventually. But, all of these countries are going to come up against America. And, that's pretty much it. And then I'll leave this in the description box for those that want to check it out. But as you can see, man, those war drums are still being beat, So I'm not going to make this one too long. Just hit a couple main points and that'll be it. So I'm going to start with the book of Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 5. And it says, "For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire." And right, man, these different nations are gearing up for this third world war. Because this third world war isn't going to be like how traditional warfare was fought, hand-to-hand combat, and even, during World War I and II, just, men on the battlefield, which, as I always mention, you will have, ground troops that are going to be going to war with each other, on the battlefield. But this war is primarily going to be fought with these nuclear missiles, man, this nuclear technology that they have. That's going to be the end all be all. This is why, these different nations are gearing up, for war and exhausting their resources into their military, right? So while I'm in Isaiah, I'm going to jump to chapter 54 and give verse 16. And it says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy." And indeed, the modern day smith, being these scientists and physicists that are creating and developing these nuclear weapons. A prime example would be, Julius Robert Oppenheimer, also known as, the father of the atomic bomb. He would be considered, a smith, because what does a blacksmith do? They create weapons, and not just any weapons, weapons of war. And this is what these scientists are doing. They're creating weapons of war, and not just any old weapons of war, weapons of mass destruction. Because these nukes have the capability of destroying the entire planet Earth. But as we know, that won't happen, because it says, in the book of Ecclesiastes, the earth abideth forever, which, actually I'll grab that real quick, just to back that up, because I always make mention of it. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1 and verse 4. And it says, "One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever." So, right, as one generation, passes, another generation, is, coming. after that generation. But just, the main point being is that, the earth abides forever. The planet Earth won't be destroyed, but certain lands will. And we know, you know, the only two confirmed lands that are going to get hit is the land of Israel, because Jerusalem has to be cleansed, because those rats and Ishmael are over there in our land. So Jerusalem, or the land of Israel, is going to be destroyed, but it's going to be built back up. And also America, aka Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed and left completely desolate, as it says in Isaiah, the 34th chapter, which gives a very vivid description of how this place is going to look after this destruction takes place. So I'm going to get the book of Joel, chapter 3, and verse 9, and it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong." And this is what these different nations are doing. Right now, South Korea is the latest nation, Slovakia, that is, developed their, latest nuke, the Hyun Move 5, or I forgot, exactly what it's called. But, again, their missile, which, as it said in that, article, that it has the capability of reaching bunkers, just like America has, what they call bunker buster missiles. Well, South Korea has them as well. They have their own, and this is what these different nations are doing, North Korea, South Korea, China, Russia. These different nations are gearing up for war. They're exhausting their resources into, their military, because that's the time that we're in. We're in a time of war, and that things are just gonna, continue to heat up, So again, Malachi chapter 4 and verse 1, and it says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch." And right, man, World War III. It's on the way. And we can see it, man. All the signs are there, because we're in that time where we're going to see this war take place. So I'm just going to get a couple more, and that'll be it. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse 12. And it says, "One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter." And right, that first woe being World War I. It came to pass, from 1915 to 1919, that first World War. So I'm going to jump to Revelation chapter 11 and verse 14. It says, "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." And right, World War II, came to pass from 1939 to 1945, which, they thought during that particular time that was the war to end all wars, but nope. It says what? The third woe, meaning World War III, that's going to be the end all be all. That's going to be the war to end all wars, because again, this is the time that we're in. They're going to seek to try to escape. And I said try to escape, but this is the time that we're in, because I'm because I'm thinking about, them trying to hide. When I say them, I'm talking about the elites, man, because, they're going to try to hide, but it's not going to work. But that's the time that we're in, though. The third woe is coming very quickly, and we can see it, but again, it won't come to pass until, these next couple prophecies take place. We're still waiting on the, mass implementation of the mark of the beast, which is spoken of in Revelation, the 13th chapter, verse 16 to 18, which is the RFID microchip. We're still waiting for that, prophecy to come to pass. We're in the time of Jacob's trouble, but it hasn't fully, gotten all the way bad, or all hell hasn't broken loose just yet, so we're still waiting for, these prophecies to take place. And then, you know, then this third world war is going to take place. So, I'm going to end it with this. This is the book of Amos chapter. No, actually, no, I won't end it with this. I'll grab one more after this. But it's the book of Amos chapter 9 and verse 2. And it says, Amos 9 and 2 says, though they dig into hell, thence shall mine hand take them. Though they climb up to heaven, I will bring them down. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. And though they go into captivity before their enemies, thence will I command the sword, and it shall slay them. And I will set mine eyes upon them for evil and not for good. And this is talking about the elites. The main point I want to get is verse 2 and 3, because again, they're going to seek to hide, from this destruction. And if they're not in their bunkers, right now as we speak, they're going to go into hiding, right before this war takes place, because again, that's what they're going to do. And even people here in America are going to seek to do that, try to hide, in their bunkers. But what? It's not going to work. They're still going to be destroyed, But the elites, the elect will be preserved, and delivered. But the elites of Edom, they're going to be preserved so that they can go into captivity after this war takes place, So I'm going to end it with Revelation chapter 9. And verse 15, and it says, and the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men. And when you read in Revelation, the 7th chapter, it mentions, the four angels, which these are four literal angels that are holding back the four winds. The four winds represent the destruction that is going to take place, World War III, if you will. There's a set time when it's going to take place. That's why there's a particular hour, day, month, and year when it is going to take place, and which is going to happen very soon, And it says to slay the third part of men, because you have three classes of men on the earth today. You have the sons of God, which are the biblical Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the tribe of Judah, all the way down to the tribe of Issachar. You have the sons of men, which are the different heathen nations. And then you have the sons of the wicked, which are, the Edomites, you so-called white people, which that's who this destruction is for. It's for you, Edom, But you will have 2/3 of the nation of Israel that are going to get caught up in this destruction for their wickedness. And as always, you heathens that aren't able to escape, into your homelands before this war takes place, you're just collateral damage. You're just over here to make a little money and die, with the wicked and the wicked of our people, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say Shalom.